You have come here thinking that addiction is a problem of the body, that it is merely a compulsive behavior, a thing to be corrected with discipline or treatment or willpower. But I tell you now, in the presence of your soul, that addiction is none of these things. Addiction is not your enemy. It is a mirror, and what it reflects, most people cannot bear to see. You sit before me, perhaps wondering if this is another lecture on morality, on recovery, on methods and tools, but I am not a physician of the flesh, and this is not a diagnosis. I am here as a guide into the depths of your psyche, into the tangled forest where your conscious self dare not walk. For every addiction is a symptom, a cipher, a wound that has tried, albeit clumsily, to heal itself. It is the voice of the shadow, speaking in code, begging to be seen. Though it wears the mask of destruction, the shadow, yes, that dark twin who lives behind your eyes, it is not evil, not in the way you were taught as a child. It is the reservoir of all that you have banished from yourself, your repressed desires, your forbidden memories, your rage, your shame, your secret longings. These are the fragments of you that were too dangerous to express in daylight, too powerful to admit in polite society. So you buried them, and you thought the burial was the end. But what is buried does not die. It transforms, it leaks into your dreams as symbols you do not understand. It guides your hand when you reach again and again for the bottle, the pill, the screen, the person, the pain. You think you are choosing these things. You are not. They are choosing you because they are the shadow's emissaries. Addiction is your soul's desperate attempt to restore contact with what you've disowned. Imagine this: a child locked in a basement by its parent, year after year. What happens to this child? Does it vanish? No. It pounds on the walls. It cries in the night, and when it is finally let out, it does not return to you as a friend. It returns as a force wild, misunderstood, and hungry. This is your shadow. And addiction is the knock on the basement door. You did not choose this wound, but now you must choose what you will do with it. Let us go deeper, deeper than the language of recovery, deeper than the diagnosis, deeper than shame. Let us descend into the archetypal layer, the realm of symbols, myths, and dreams where all human truths converge. Here, the addict is not merely a broken creature, but a shaker, a wanderer in exile, a Prometheus who has stolen fire not for the world, but for himself, only to find the gods have chained him to a rock of suffering. Do you remember the myth of Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy? He's the god of addiction, but he is also the god of divine madness, the madness that tears the veil from the false self. When you drink, when you lose yourself to your compulsion, it is not simply pleasure you are chasing, it is transcendence. It is a return to the wild God within. The problem is not the pursuit. The problem is that you do not know what you are truly pursuing. You are not hungry for the substance. You are hungry for reunion with your wholeness, with your lost innocence, with the forgotten self that was once so tender. It could not survive the harshness of this world without hiding. And yet, here is the paradox that must be faced. The more you flee from your shadow, the more power it gains. The more you repress your wounds, the more they find expression through unconscious behavior. This is the secret every addict knows in their bones. Even if they cannot name it, the compulsion is not a failure of morality, it is a misdirected ritual. A primitive ceremony seeking wholeness through means that can only offer fleeting illusion. The opiate, the alcohol, the pornography, the shopping, the rage, all of these are shadows wearing masks. They are substitutes for the sacred, and the sacred cannot be substituted without consequence. What does it mean to be addicted? Truly, it means that the ego has lost its center. It has forgotten that it is not the whole self, only a part of it. It has constructed a life that denies death, that rejects pain, that numbs fear. But the soul was not made to be amputated. The psyche is a totality, not a selection. And so the very things you suppress become the things that consume you. The psychic law. There is a reason, why the addict often possesses deep sensitivity, a painful empathy, a sense of otherworldliness. They are not weak. They are porous. The veil between their conscious mind and the unconscious is thin, too thin to bear without preparation. And if that veil is not reinforced with wisdom, with initiation, with truth, it is torn open by the forces within. The addict is not a criminal. They are an uninitiated mystic, but there is danger in this path. For the one who seeks escape without facing the truth of their shadow becomes possessed by it. They begin to enact what they fear. The one who numbs his anger will eventually become violent. The one who represses lust may become a slave to seduction. The one who buries grief will find themselves drowning in melancholia with no name. And all of this dance of repression and eruption is orchestrated by the part of you that has never been allowed to speak. You may have thought you were addicted to pleasure, but truly you are addicted to forgetting. You are addicted to erasure of pain, of memory, of emotion. The substance, whatever it is, allows you to forget the ache, but it also erases the voice, and that voice, that wounded voice, is your only compass home. Until you face it, you will circle endlessly through cycles of shame and relief, pain and escape, guilt and craving. These are not random. They are the seasons of the shadow. The shadow does not wish to destroy you. It wishes to be integrated. It longs to be seen not through the eyes of judgment, but through the eyes of truth. When you dare to look directly at what you have feared the most, you begin the sacred work of alchemy. This is the path of individuation. This is how the addict becomes the sage. Let me offer you a dream. In this dream, a woman walks through a vast forest at night. She carries a lantern, but the flame is small, the darkness is immense. Wolves follow her, but they do not attack. They circle, they whisper in symbols. She is not afraid. She continues walking. Then suddenly the lantern goes out. She is left with only her breath, only her heartbeat, only her memory. And in that moment, she realizes the light was never in the lantern. It was in her eyes. This dream is yours. The forest is your unconscious. The wolves are your desires, your fears, your traumas, your lost selves. They do not seek to destroy you. They seek to belong to you. Addiction, too, is a wolf. It is time to stop running from it and begin listening. Not listening as a victim. Listening as one who has returned from exile and wishes to know the truth of their soul. There is a great cost to this. You will have to surrender the illusion that you are in control. You will have to mourn the years you have lost, not with bitterness, but with reverence. You will have to accept that some parts of you will never be cured, only understood. And in that understanding, you will become free. Freedom is not the absence of craving. It is the presence of consciousness. It is the ability to sit with the hunger without feeding it poison. The shadow will always live with you, but it does not need to live through you. And now, as we descend further, I must tell you something that may trouble your intellect, but nourish your soul. The wound is not the enemy. It is the initiation. The world teaches us to conceal our wounds, to medicate them, to hide their scent as if they make us weak. But from the perspective of the psyche, the wound is sacred. It is the crack through which the gods whisper. It is the portal through which the unconscious makes itself known. When you are addicted, you are not merely broken. You are being called where? To the underworld of the self. To the place where you buried your original pain, your first betrayal, your forgotten longing. For most, this place is terrifying. And so they live on the surface, in distraction, in denial, in simulation. But you, the addict, have already tasted the underworld. You return to it again and again. Even if it is through the wrong gate, you enter it not through ceremony, but through compulsion. But do not despair, for even this distorted descent has meaning. It reveals that a part of you knows where the transformation lies. You have simply not yet been taught how to descend consciously. There is a pattern I have seen again and again in the lives of patients, in dreams, in myths, in my own soul. The pattern is this: the deeper the addiction, the more luminous the original self, the brighter the light, the longer the shadow. It is as if the soul, when it cannot fully express itself in this fractured world, turns against itself in hunger, not because it is malevolent, but because it has been silenced. Have you ever considered that your addiction may have started not because you were weak, but because you were sensitive in a world that punished sensitivity? Perhaps you felt everything too much, too early. The emotions of others, the chaos of your environment, the betrayals you could not name. So you found something, some ritual, some escape, some substance that quieted the storm, that gave you even a moment's peace. And your psyche, desperate for survival, learned to return to it again and again. But this peace was counterfeit. It silenced the pain. Yes, but it also silenced the truth. Now the time has come to listen again, not with your ears, but with your dreams. with your symptoms, with the symbolic language of the unconscious, for the unconscious never speaks plainly. It speaks in metaphor, in repetition, in irony. It tells you what you cannot bear to hear. Through the only voice it has, your behavior, your emotion, your longing. If you have been caught in the loop of addiction, it is not because you are evil or irredeemable. It is because the message has not yet been translated. You are still chasing the symptom instead of decoding the symbol. Let me speak now of symbols, for here lies the hidden map to your liberation. In one dream, an addict came to me. He described a house with many locked rooms. He was running through the corridors, searching for a key. Every door he opened led to another hallway. More shadows, more locks. At the end of the dream, he stood before a door covered in mirrors. He broke the mirrors to find the door was made of bone. He wept. Do you understand what this dream reveals? The house is the psyche. The locked doors are repressed memories, emotions, truths. The endless search is the addiction, always looking, always chasing, never resting. And the final door, the one made of mirrors and bone, is the truth that to open the final gate, one must face their own reflection and pass through their own mortality. The mirror is the ego, the bone is the soul. You will not escape the cycle by bypassing the truth. You must walk straight into it. You must sit with the pain you've run from. You must ask the shadow what it needs, not to control you, but to be heard. Let me be very clear. This is not about willpower. This is about willingness. The psyche does not yield to force. It opens only to surrender. The deeper powers within you will not be tamed by punishment or denial. They require integration. And what does that mean? Integration. It means allowing the parts of you that were exiled to come home, not as tyrants, but as honored guests. The rage, the lust, the fear, the grief, each one carries a fragment of your original wholeness. Each one has a face you have not yet seen. Each one holds a truth that, when named, it becomes light. You think the shadow is the end, but I tell you it is the beginning. The moment you turn to face it, without flinching, without lying, without running, you begin the sacred task of becoming who you are. Not who you were told to be, not who you pretended to be, but who you are beneath the masks. I must speak now of shame, for it is shame that binds the addict most tightly. More than craving, more than trauma, it is shame that tells you you are not worthy of healing. Shame is a jailer of transformation, but shame is a lie. It is a lie born of wounded ancestors, broken systems, misguided institutions. It is the voice of control, not truth. And as long as you believe it, you will sabotage your own redemption. To heal, you must commit the greatest rebellion of the wounded soul, self-compassion. Not pity, not indulgence, compassion, the ability to hold your brokenness with the same tenderness you would offer a child, because that is what you are at your core, a child of psyche, a child of the mystery, and your suffering has meaning if you dare to uncover it. The journey is long. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be faked. There is no shortcut to wholeness, But there is one constant companion, the self, the archetype of divine wholeness that lives within you, even now, behind the fog. This self is not your ego. It is not your addiction. It is the deeper source from which all healing flows. And it is waiting for you. It waits in your symbols, in your silence, in your dreams, in your darkest night. It waits not to punish you, but to welcome you back. But you must choose. You must choose the path of conscious descent, not into relapse, but into revelation. The darkness you fear holds your medicine. The very thing you have avoided may be the thing that saves you. Do not fear the descent. All true initiation begins in darkness. All rebirth begins in the tomb. You are not ending, you are becoming. You are not falling apart, you are falling inward, into the place where your soul has been waiting all along. Do you feel it now? The quiet stirring beneath your chest, the subtle pull toward the forgotten. This is not coincidence. This is not mere emotion. It is the movement of the unconscious responding to truth. For the unconscious does not sleep, even when the conscious self drifts through numbness and routine. It waits, it listens, it whispers, and when the soul can no longer bear the weight of repression, it erupts not as a revelation, but as symptom. Addiction is that eruption, a scream muffled by ritual, a plea for wholeness masked as compulsion. But it is still the soul calling, and every time you return to your habit, to your substance, to your escape, you are not just seeking relief, you are unintentionally reenacting your exile. There is a dream I once recorded from a man on the brink of collapse. In the dream, he is trying to climb a staircase that coils infinitely upward, but the higher he climbs, the heavier his legs become. As he ascends, the stairs grow narrower until he is crawling, scraping his knees, bleeding into the stone. At the top, there is a mirror, but in the mirror, he sees not his reflection, but a small boy sobbing in a dark cellar. He woke in tears. And in the therapy that followed, we uncovered what the dream revealed, that his addiction to performance, to ambition, to alcohol, to validation, none of it was about joy. It was about running from the cellar, from the boy who once cried and was never heard, from the pain of being unseen, unloved, forgotten. So many of you walk through life building staircases to nowhere, believing if you climb high enough, succeed loud enough, numb deeply enough, you will escape the wound. But the soul does not ascend by denial. It descends to heal. The spiral staircase is not a ladder to success. It is a symbol of the return into the underworld, into the basement of memory, into the hidden origins of your longing. This is why I say to you, do not look upward in fear, nor outward in distraction. Look inward, downward, into the shadows where the child weeps. There you will find the true source of your addiction, not a substance, but a silence, not a pleasure. But avoid. Addiction is a mythic wound, and every myth contains the seeds of redemption. Consider the archetype of the wounded healer. In every ancient culture, the healer must first be wounded Why? Because it is the wound that makes them permeable to wisdom. The pain that humbles them, that cracks open the arrogance of certainty. The addict is the modern face of this archetype, though misunderstood and condemned by society. Beneath every addict lives a healer in waiting. A priest who has lost their temple, a shaman wandering the city streets with the memory of the sacred buried beneath trauma. You are not merely sick, you are sacred, but you have been trained to see your symptoms as enemies rather than as messages. Let us speak now of the mask. The mask you wear when you say, I'm fine, the mask you wear when you perform normalcy, when you pretend you are in control. This mask is your persona, the social self, the ego's camouflage, but the persona is not you. It is a compromise, a necessary illusion designed to help you navigate the outer world. But when you mistake it for your identity, you create a fracture, a split between the true self and the performed self. And addiction thrives in that fracture because the more energy you invest in pretending, the more exhausted your psyche becomes. And in exhaustion, the shadow emerges, not gently, but violently. The bottle, the binge, the spiral, it erupts in the space where authenticity was denied. You cannot heal what you pretend does not exist. You cannot face the shadow while wearing a mask. Remove it, not all at once, not before the world, but before yourself. Sit quietly and ask, who am I when no one is watching? What pain have I buried beneath achievement? What hunger have I silenced with sensation? These questions are terrifying, but they are the beginning of liberation. Let me offer another dream. A woman wanders through a snowy forest. She is naked, carrying a flame cupped between her hands. Each time she stumbles, the flame flickers. Wolves howl in the distance. She approaches a cabin. Inside is a figure cloaked in black. She enters, trembling. The figure turns. It is her own face, older, scarred, wise. She falls to her knees. The flame goes out, and then the room fills with light, not from the flame, but from within her chest. This dream came from a patient who had survived trauma, addiction, loss. She believed she was broken, but her psyche knew otherwise. The nakedness was vulnerability. The snow, isolation, the flame, hope, and the cloaked figure, her future self, waiting patiently in the forest of her subconscious. Your healing is already within you, but it must be awakened, not through punishment, not through denial, but through descent. You must walk the snowy forest of your psyche. You must meet the wolves and the mirrors. You must dare to sit with the parts of you you have avoided, the hungry, the angry, the grieving, the afraid. And in that sacred sitting, something begins to shift, not suddenly, not dramatically, but subtly. The first sign is honesty. You tell the truth to yourself, even if it shakes, even if it burns. The second sign is stillness. You learn to feel what you once escaped. And then, slowly, the integration begins. You begin to see the pattern not as a curse, but as a code. You realize your addiction was never about weakness. It was about misdirection. Your soul was speaking, but no one taught you how to listen. So you numbed, you ran, you rebelled, you clung. But now you are remembering. You are remembering that beneath the craving is a cry. And beneath the cry is a child. And beneath the child is a self that never died, only waited for the day. You would no longer seek escape, but encounter, not intoxication, but initiation. The soul does not want you to be sober only, it wants you to be whole. And wholeness means facing what broke you, holding what hurt you, blessing what shamed you. Only then will the craving lose its power. Only then will you realize it was never about the drug. The drug was a stand-in for the divine, the return to that which you lost when the world convinced you to fragment. But the divine cannot be consumed. It must be remembered. And you are remembering now. There is no greater danger to the human soul than the belief that one is beyond redemption. This is the true poison of addiction, not the substance, not the ritual, but the internal conviction that you are too far gone to be seen, to be forgiven, to be welcomed back into wholeness. And yet I say to you now, not with sentimentality, but with the full authority of the unconscious, no one is beyond return. Not even you. The psyche is not interested in your shame. It is not measuring your failures. It is watching, waiting, listening for the one moment you stop fighting yourself. Because only then can the real transformation begin. Not when you are perfect, not when you are finished, but when you are present. The shadow cannot be destroyed. It can only be embraced. And herein lies the paradox that terrifies the addict. You have tried to conquer your demons by cutting them out. You've exiled your lust, your anger, your fear, your despair. But what you exile does not vanish, it festers. It becomes a ghost, and ghosts do not obey the laws of willpower. They haunt the margins. They whisper in the cracks of your consciousness. They influence your choices, your cravings, your compulsions, until you invite them to sit at your table. It is a frightening thing to eat with your ghosts, but it is necessary. The ancient alchemists knew this. When they spoke of turning lead into gold, they were not merely chemists. They were mystics of the soul. They understood that the base elements of our humanity, our pain, our wounds, our addictions contained the raw material for transformation, not through denial, through transmutation. To face your addiction with reverence instead of revulsion is the beginning of alchemy. Do you understand what this means? It means that your brokenness is not a mistake. It is the crucible. It is the container in which your true self is being forged. If you dare to remain conscious in the fire, if you can sit with your longing without rushing to satisfy it, if you can observe your craving without collapsing into it, you will begin to glimpse the golden thread woven through your suffering. And this thread will lead you home. There is a story told in many cultures. A soul shattered and lost wanders through the desert. Each night it dreams of water, of healing, of rest. But each morning it awakens to the same dry wind. One day, exhausted and near death, the soul falls into the sand and weeps. And in its weeping, it stops resisting. It gives up the search. It surrenders. And in that moment, It notices something beneath the sand. The earth is cool, moist. It begins to dig, not frantically, but gently, patiently, and from that place of surrender, it finds a spring. The lesson is clear. You cannot outrun your thirst, but you can listen to it. You can ask it what it truly wants, because the thirst is not for the thing, it is for the truth. The drink, the high, the noise, the distraction, they were only imitations. What your soul truly wants is presence, intimacy, connection with your own being, a return to what was lost when you began to believe that certain parts of you were unlovable. But nothing in you is unlovable. Nothing. Even the ugliest craving, even the most destructive pattern, began as a misguided prayer. A child reaching for a parent who never answered. A wound begging to be witnessed. And so, when the shadow rises, when the temptation appears, when the old cycle beckons you now, have a choice not to resist it with force, not to condemn it with shame, but to inquire, what are you trying to tell me? What part of me is crying tonight? What sacred truth have I silenced so long that it must scream through addiction to be heard? When you begin to ask these questions, the unconscious responds, not always immediately, not always clearly, but with time, the symbols will reveal themselves in your dreams, in your triggers, in your bodily sensations. The soul speaks through symbols, and the addict is one who must learn to interpret them, because once you learn to read your own symbols, you are no longer a prisoner, you are a pilgrim. The path becomes a pilgrimage, not of performance, but of integration. And there is something extraordinary that begins to occur once you stop exiling your shadow. You begin to feel whole, not perfect, not always at peace, but real, grounded, alive. You begin to realize that healing does not mean never craving again. It means craving consciously and choosing differently. It means recognizing the seduction without succumbing to it. It means becoming the witness, not the slave. And in that witnessing, a new self emerges, not the masked self, not the addict self, but the true self, the one who can hold joy and sorrow in the same breath, the one who does not seek to eliminate pain, but to sanctify it, the one who walks with both light and shadow, and therefore walks in truth. There will be days when you falter. There will be nights when the old patterns whisper seductively, when the ancient ache resurfaces, when the wolves howl, but now you know their names. You know they are not monsters. They are messengers. Invite them in, sit with them, break bread with your past, and then rise slowly and walk again. This is the work of a lifetime, but it is sacred work. You are not weak for struggling. You are not broken for craving. You are not lost for having wandered. You are human. And the soul of a human being is not linear. It is spiral. You will revisit the same lessons again and again, but each time you will meet them with deeper understanding, greater compassion, more presence, and one day you will wake and realize you are no longer running, you are no longer numb, You are no longer hiding. You are here, alive, awake, and walking the sacred path home to yourself. That is the end of addiction. Not when the substance disappears, but when the lie that you are unworthy dissolves, and in its place, wholeness begins to breathe.